All right, guys, welcome to a special interview of Almost in Agreement. I have Courtney Durrett on the show with us. She is running for District 2 County Commission here in Knox County. Um, the Fountain City, North Knox, so it's
Mm-hmm.
Broadway up through the Central Split and all what I affectionately like to call Brewers Road, um, and then
Mm-hmm.
all the way over to East Town, and then up around the 640 loop. You got Central High School and that general direction.
Right.
All right,
And
so
then it even goes all the way to Clinton Highway, out Cedar Lane and Merchants to Clinton Highway.
okay, so you're gonna have okay. Um, all right, so I guess I'll let you get started with a little bit of your background, um, how you got to where you physically are, and then how you got to the decision to run for commission seat.
Okay. Well, physically, I've been in District 2 for most of my life. Born and raised, I was born at St. Mary's Hospital, lived on Emerald Boulevard until I went to UT for college. And after college, went to Nashville with my political science degree to work for the state senate for the clerk's office for almost 2 years, and then I worked for the Tennessee Department of Economic Community Development for a little bit before I went back to get my master's at UT in education, and then ended up teaching high school government and history in Clarksville High School for 4 years, and then at Austin East for two, and did my internship here at West, and stopped teaching full time because I had my daughter. And as a lot of people know, teachers don't get paid that much, and going to work and having to pay someone else versus me staying at home, it was almost a wash financially.
Right.
So I just decided to stay home. We weren't going to really be making any money with me working and having to pay someone else to raise our kids. So I ended up just taking the opportunity to stay home and do it myself. And have been doing that since. I have also last year started being a substitute for Knox County now that my kids are older, and slowly getting back into education, the education field.
Okay.
Um, but I decided to run for several reasons. One being them. I wanted Knox County to be a place that they would want to stay and raise their family, like I've chosen to do, like my parents chose to do, and even I go as far back as my great grandparents lived on Deary Street in District 2, in Old North, or excuse me, in Fourth and Gill, and just wanting it to be someplace they would want to stay and be attractive to them to raise their kids, and so that's one of the reasons. But also because I'm nothing extraordinary. I'm a teacher. I'm involved in my community. I started my neighborhoods organization, and just really want to be the voice of the people, because I feel like, and this is me as that government teacher about to school you a little bit. When I teach my kids, my high school students, government is an institution to organize and or protect its people, and p- government is by, of, and for the people. And I feel like we've gotten away from that. So I'm really trying to be the voice of the people. I want to bring that aspect back to government, because without people, there's really no necessity for government. So
Right.
that, and just more of I want there to be options. I want people to have options when they go to the polls on August 6th, which is in 3 weeks
Right.
from
And or
tomorrow.
or you can go 2 days from now and get the head
Right,
start and
that's
get it out of the
that's
way.
true.
Um,
Or you can even go so far as to print off a mail-in ballot request. So, I mean, there are many ways to go about it. I just want there to be options.
okay. So that I mean that kind of infers a question, I suppose, is District Two not generally have? Is it generally an unopposed seat? I mean, it sounds like that in the past there's been a non-opposed election for that seat.
That's not necessarily what I mean. Like, no, it's had opposition. There have been what District 2 is actually one of the districts that traditionally does have two choices.
Hmm.
But I just want there to be, yeah, diverse choices.
Okay, because I'm out here in District 4, which we haven't really had a blue side of the ticket every single time. It's been
That's right.
I blanked out on his name. He's been the lead of the commission. He's been the chair of the commission for the last forever, and he's retiring this year. But
Right.
it's been his seat with no objection for at least 2 elections, if I remember correctly. But I don't,
Right.
and that's kind of the point of the show. And I always go through this kind of spiel. So everybody who's listened to our interviews before, you hear me say this all the time. I didn't have you teaching my government class, so I don't remember. And that's a big thing for me. Like I don't like. I remember parts and pieces of civics, and we've joked about maybe doing a special series where we literally bring in somebody who knows it and go and repeat high school civics, because most of us don't remember. Like, because I mean, a lot of what I end up doing on these interviews is, as much as it is, I want to highlight you and give you the opportunity to get your message out, to talk about your platform and stuff like that. It's also me trying to be retaught how the system works and how some of the parts and pieces are in play. I spent a big long time with my first county commissioner, who's actually from my seat, talking more about how not only did he get into politics, but like how the kind of the apparatus is working, as far as, you know, the parts and the people. Because I made a joke about how his campaign manager, I was like, is that like a Yellow Pages thing? Do you get to look that up and just call somebody? Or, and he's like, no, once you kind of start once you start playing around in it, you start meeting these people. Because it's something that I've done, that I've softly looked into personally, is maybe, you know, because I don't feel like you're saying, I don't feel like, I feel like there's government as a whole, not as much locally, but locally too, has kind of put itself in a bubble away from the rest of us. And I feel like that. I feel like it is something we need to take back as a citizenry. And I always like to hear that out of our out of people running for office, at least. So so teacher for a long time, you have the schedule availability for this job, because my understanding of it, it's a 5 to 50 hour work week, depending on what's going on.
Right.
With the different people I've talked to, and mostly it's dealing with annoying constituents like me yelling at you about different stuff. And that's good. And again, one of the things we do a lot is we end up arguing Trump and Biden and all that kind of crap all the time. And the real story is that you, even though you're not even my district, you have more impact on me on a day to day than Trump's gonna. And
Exactly.
what I really want to try to figure out is it doesn't have to be me, but I want to figure out how to get more community involvement in the process, more people behind it. And so one of the things that everybody's talking about is budget stuff. And I'm curious, with your teaching background, obviously you're going to be an advocate for teachers. That's, you know, most at least most people running will at least put the rhetoric of being an advocate for a teacher. You're probably more likely honest about that than some others, because you are one. But you know, it's the budget concerns and stuff like that. I get, but I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around how we move forward with the budget concerns, on top of the requirements. Because I haven't got to look over the new announcement, as far as exactly what they came out with today, as far as the back to school plan. I know they're pushing the first day back a week, and then there'll be an in and out option, and then masks if you're in, and all that kind of stuff. I know I got the highlights, but I haven't got to read the whole thing yet. And so I guess I'm wondering, from your point of view, you know, as a teacher, how you feel about this. Maybe not this particular now, because I don't know if you've read it yet, but I mean, how do you feel like? What is your opinion on the better way to get back to school? Whether it's this way, if you've seen it, or if it's more kind of a general idea.
So I've been watching it since 5 o'clock and stopped watching it as soon as we started this, and it's still going on. And when I talk about watching it, I'm talking about the Board of Education meeting where Superintendent Thomas
I'm not a
presented the
fan, by the way,
plan.
just so you know. As a parent, I'm not a fan of his.
Where he presented the plan. I did read it for the most part. Before I even started watching the plan, because not only am I a teacher, but I have a rising second grader, and I also have a rising kindergartner. You know, this is going to be his first year in a public school.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that I had all the options, had a good grasp of all the options that are being presented. And to and this is not a great answer, but to answer your question, there is no good way to start school right now. I like the fact that they do have the virtual option and the in-school option for people who choose that. um, I have several questions about. So if depending on whichever one you choose, you have those two options. You have to stick with, from what I heard tonight. And now again, he keeps insisting that this is a fluid document, and so it's living. And in government terms, it's considered a living document, in that it changes as
as the
environments
circumstances,
change
right?
and
Yeah.
as things develop.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I have questions about is, let's say I chose, hypothetically speaking, I chose to send my kids to school, to the school system, or to our school, which is Fountain City Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say all of a sudden my daughter's class, 5 kids don't show up, and I get wind that maybe 3 of them have tested positive for COVID. From what this plan is saying, I have to stick with this in school option for the semester. Now, I get that if people decide to do the online option, they need to stick with it for the semester, because they, you can't just show up in the middle of the school year or in the middle of the semester at the schools and expect them to have all the social distancing requirements in place and that sort of thing for another student added in the middle of the semester. But to say that if I choose the option to have my kids start in school in the building, and then there would be an outbreak, maybe it's just in that classroom, that my kid has to stay there for the semester. It's just
Right, and
it's
suffer
those things.
right, and suffer the absentee
Right.
like suffer the consequences of being absent a lot because you choose
Right.
to take them out for a period of time and let the air clear, for lack of a better word. And
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
then,
go
well,
ahead.
it's not, and then on top of that, I'm a substitute. So if I get wind that, or let's say I get asked to come fulfill a job for a teacher that has to be out for the next 2 weeks.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily tell me why he or she is going to be out of their job, but at the same
Yeah, right.
time,
You're going to
it's pretty
assume,
obvious.
right, and then you're going to assume the class is all infected too, and then you're basically walking in knowing that you're going to put yourself at risk. Yeah, I mean
So,
that.
am I going to accept that job? Probably not.
Do you? I don't know how the substitute that things work if you have options to refuse and whatnot.
Oh
But
yeah, you do. You do.
okay,
You can choose when you work. You can choose to accept a job. You can choose to not. So it just depends on that. And then included in this plan is that teachers will be given 10 emergency days if they are supposed to quarantine, because I mean, if we're following CDC guidelines, they're going to have to quarantine if this is how I'm taking it. If a student comes, if they get wind that a student in their class is tested positive for COVID, it's my understanding that everybody who's been around that student also should quarantine until they get tested. And so, and
right.
if they do end up testing positive, even if they're asymptomatic, there will be 10 emergency.
So you're allowed to get the virus once. Oh, don't know.
Right. And then
Right.
if you get it again or have to quarantine because your student, or because a student in your class, another student, oh my gosh, those are my dogs.
Right, because it's not even about
another,
right. It's not even about the teacher necessarily getting sick. It's that they are required to quarantine because one of their students has, and then
right. And then
4 weeks, 5 weeks later, they come back and another kid has it from some other source, and now they have to quarantine again, and they're not getting sick days essentially.
They have to either use their sick days that they have accrued, or they have to go without pay.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. I didn't intend to make this into an interview about that because I kind of intentionally kept myself out of the loop to not make it that way. But now I'm having more questions because I haven't read it yet, and you have. But I don't know. It's interesting, as far as it's interesting on all the levels, and it's like I was talking with my boys. We're at Rocky Hill. I've got a rising 4th grader and a rising 2nd grader. And it's like we're going back to school. We got a bonus week off, I guess, but we got to get back into it, and I got to figure out how to get them back in just regular school mode because we've been at a super long summer already, and then on top of that, it's back into school mode plus some new rules and stuff like that. And I'm usually the stubborn parent that's like, you're not dead, go to school. And I've got to be better
Right.
about that as a parent because I don't need to, I don't, But then again, it's as a parent, as a working parent, what happens when, okay, so Johnny in my son's class test positive, so now my son has to take 2 weeks off because he has to
Right.
quarantine from contact, which means he's
Mm-hmm.
in my house, which means I can't take 2 weeks off of work necessarily.
Right.
I mean, I could argue for it. I don't know how my employer would take that. Um, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I haven't stopped working. I've been lucky enough to be essential and continue working through this whole thing. So, I mean, I understand it's complicated, but more importantly, let's kind of push off to something else because this isn't necessarily under what you're going to be getting into, other than
I know.
budget talk. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the budgets, as far as I've talked to everybody else, all the county commission really has to do with the school district is budget. They get
It's
curriculum,
budget.
right?
Yeah.
They get curriculum, you get budget. And as long, again, as far as I understand, as long as their budgets, the school budget's not obnoxious, the county's going to say okay. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, especially since there's some like stipulations in place about how and when and where the money has to go as collected to the schools and stuff like that. So, outside of schools, which is very important for a lot of different things, um, moving forward in the, I guess we have to move forward in the COVID economy and stuff like that. And I used to live up in there. I lived right by Bell Morris.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I's first place together was a little pink house off right near Bell Morris, and then we moved up to right next to Central High School, in a little duplex until we got pregnant, and then we moved out here to the west side of town. And so I'm fairly familiar with the area, and there's been a lot of development that's gone on through there. Like I joked about the beer row that's in there right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of the things, just what are your thoughts moving forward on how we as a community are going to get things back on its feet? Because I've got one of our friends from school is one of the owners of one of the breweries down there, and he's been okay, but he's definitely been struggling through this. And so, how are we going to how are we as a county going to try to get this thing back up and running? Mostly to generate revenue, because that's the most important thing, as I can see right now, is that we need money. We need money going into the county so we can get it into the schools, and so we get it in all these other programs that we need.
Right.
So I guess what are your thoughts on that, on as far as kind of reinvigorating the economy in your district to try to generate revenue?
Well, it's like we've been talking about with schools. It's a thin line that we have to. It's very much a balancing act. We've got to have businesses in mind at this. Excuse me. At the same time that we have the health of our residents in mind, and so if we can continue to keep businesses open, that obviously helps with education. It helps with our economy. It helps keeping things going, and even going back to that education pieces, they were talking about how much more money they're going to be spending, and that's not even budgeted money. They're talking about $4 to $5 million they're going to need to spend, and it's not even in the budget.
Right.
And this is just for COVID and for the sanitization and that sort of
Right.
thing for schools. So that money's got to come somewhere. And so, I really feel like if we are able to continue to keep businesses open, but yet we've got to make sure we are following CDC guidelines. I mean, I really feel like that's the only way we're going to be able to do this.
Okay.
We all have to realize that that we are each a part of this puzzle, and we are needed to do it together in order for it to be a complete work, and for our economy to be able to grow, or at least get back to what we were before. Because I know our school system budget is based on sales tax.
Right.
And so when when we aren't spending, there's not the budget. There's no money there for the school system budget. And so I don't know that there's one specific answer that would say, oh, this is it, this is how we do it. There are a lot of working pieces to this, but we all have to be willing to do our part. we can't just ignore the scientific aspect of this disease and what the CDC recommends on how to prevent it. If we can prevent it, then we can get back to normal faster. Well, the new normal.
Right.
I don't know that we'll ever get back to
Right.
pre-COVID life.
Yeah, because that's what I was trying to tell my kids at dinner. It's like this might be a thing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We might be dealing with adjusted versions of what we do every day, all day, and how we have to interact with our friends at school and stuff like that. We're scouts in our house, and we've been trying to figure out, because we normally do stuff over the summer with scouts, and that's all been canceled. And as far as a mini picture of trying to figure out how to move forward with things, like we're running into our big fundraiser of the year that we're not going to be able to do. And so how are we going to fund our year in Scouts without all the other stuff that's going on? It doesn't help that Scouts is getting sued by everybody and their brother from the last 50 years. So there's other financial issues that Scouts are having that is not COVID related. But so I agree, it's a tough time. And I think you hit the nail on the head, though, with and I think it's a greater picture, and this was pre-COVID issues that I think nationally even there is a loss of community that's been going on for a while. COVID helped kick us over the edge on certain things, like we can do everything online now. We can do great interviews with people from across town without having to actually get in the same room, which is nice. But at the same time, it's not, it's having a person here and talking to them in person is a different conversation. And I think that's one of the things that we societally are starting to, this is showing the error of that idea, that we don't need to be personal and we don't need to care about our neighbors like we used to. And I've had conversations with my neighbors that I'm not super close with, and talking about how weird it is to me that I remember, I ran around all day, every day when I was a kid, and my mom screamed out the back door and said, "Come home for dinner." And I came home for dinner.
Right.
I don't let my kids out of my sight. Right. There's a short list of people that my kids are allowed to be with that I'm not with there with them. And the school system is one of the few on that list too. But there's enough other kids there that it's usually okay. Anyway, that's not the point, but I'm just like, I think that's a very key idea, and I don't know what it is, and that's one of the things that got me inspired to do what we're doing. It started out as just me and a couple of buddies doing a podcast where it's mostly just us doing, like, I don't know, a bad version of the Daily Show is more or less what the podcast started out as. We're just talking about what happened this week and what's going on in our lives, but and then as we were talking about it, it's like we all realized that there's a lot of stuff right here in Knoxville that we can have an impact on that we're not doing anything about. And so we started talking on the main show, and it's like, well, let's just call these people. They're running for office. They need screen time. Let's give it to them. And let's see if we can't just learn for our own sake. And that's what we're trying to do. And I'm hoping through our format, because we are way less structured, I guess, for lack of a better word, that we can get some traction on that idea and get people that aren't like, because I don't like a lot of the local news, local coverage. Local news is local coverage of politics. What little is on there is very stale. It's very meh. I had Grant in here earlier, and he was talking about how both of you guys have been trying to get with a Good Morning Tennessee or Inside Tennessee set up for a while, and like schedules couldn't work out, and they weren't really flexible, and they were trying to play with the COVID rules and stuff like that too. And it was just like, this should be something to me that is much more palatable for Knoxvillians to take in. And we need to figure out how to do that. And maybe this version is the answer. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But because I want to get like the original version of this show has inspired me to get more involved with mine. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And so I guess that was a long-winded way of saying I totally agree that we need to figure out how to get everybody on board on the same idea of these are the steps we need to take to get us moving forward. Okay, so I went long. Go ahead. Go.
But, well, what I was going to say is, but it gets back to that divisive rhetoric that is, national politics.
Right.
And everything, it's almost like everything is political or is politicized now. Masks are politicized. And when did that happen? It's just so hard with the rhetoric that's going on at the federal level to even get people on board for a simple idea of protecting the greater good.
I mean, I've got an answer to that one if you want to hear my version of that answer.
Sure.
But I mean, My personal opinion is we have been lied to from the federal level for so long about so many
Mm-hmm.
things over and over and over again, so that when you tell me the truth, I don't listen.
Hmm.
I mean, that's honestly, that's, because I mean, even just inside this, it was like, don't wear masks because you're too stupid to wear it, right, general public.
Right.
When then later they come out and say, well, we only said that because we wanted to make sure we had enough in stock for the frontline people, which is an understandable statement. But you don't trust me enough to say, hey, take it easy. We need to save these for these
Hmm.
people because they're going to be knee deep in it. You're supposed to be quarantining at home. And when we get supplies back
Right.
in, then we all get it and we can go about our business. No, you, the populace, are too dumb. So we're going to
Hmm.
lie to you about it. And then when we tell you the truth, um, what are you going to
You're not
do?
gonna believe it either.
Right. And so I that's my opinion on it, because again, me and the guys on the show have argued about that to death. I call myself a libertarian, and I kind of argue those viewpoints a lot. And that's a lot of the libertarian viewpoint is that
Hmm.
the government that we know is tends to act in its best interest, and we, who they're supposed to be working for, get left behind. So
Right.
let's get rid of these government bodies because they're not working for us anymore. Now,
Hmm.
my stance is that's all federal level to me. I think the local is important, and I think there's definitely things in place that the local can do way better. And so
Right.
and so like I'm trying to get. I was supposed to have Eddie Manis on. He got caught up. He got rescheduled, but I'm trying to talk to some of the local people for the state level stuff to try to push that agenda. That's my agenda. I'm trying to push the agenda in. We need to stop taking the money out and keep the money here and
Hmm.
spend the money on ourselves. And then when we have excess, then we can worry about the Kentuckys and stuff like that, instead of let's start with worrying about everybody and leave everybody behind. Because that's my same issue with the school board. That's why I'm really not a big Thomas fan, is because his standard policy, which I understand he got smacked real hard from the lawsuit from that one school or whatever, in that he is more concerned with getting sued than he is with getting at least as much as he can to as many as possible. And that's something that
Right.
I have a big problem with, is the idea is that I'm not doing something out of fear instead of doing the best I can with what I can for as many as I can. And I totally
Hmm.
agree. I don't want to leave anybody behind. It's not a oh well, they don't count because they can't keep up or something like that. But it's at least get something in front of the majority, and then break down, buckle down, focus on the cracks in the system. But I don't know. I got long winded there. I apologize. So one of the things I've talked to all the county commissioners about, because I accidentally brought it up with Kyle Ward when he was here. Um, I've gotten on a big kick on going Metro Knoxville, on trying to the redundancy, especially in your district. Like 80% of your district is in the city,
Hmm.
and so you have a city council person and you, who are both working on the same stuff, within the same stuff. And I understand that some of that stuff is divided by like responsibilities between the two offices, but like I feel like when we talk about money a lot, there should be savings in that. And so anyway, I'm hot on the going Metro Knoxville, getting rid of the city as its separate entity and running as one unified government. Um, I don't know if you put any thought into it, but I'd be curious what you think about it.
Well, we actually have two city council members in our district. We have District 4, which is where I live, and included in for the city. But there's also, and forgive me if I get the number wrong, I'm pretty sure it's District 5, which is Charlie Thomas. Because the numbers are different, because
Right,
I'm running for District 2 for the county. I
right,
live in District 4 in the city, and I'm pretty sure District 5 is also part of District 2 in the county.
right.
Um,
That's another part
so
of why I want to go Metro, because it's so freaking complicated with that kind of stuff as well. For me, like,
it's incredibly complicated.
right, because
Why
like,
can't we even be the same number? Let's just be the same boundary.
right, for me, I was trying to pull a ballot because I was trying to see who was on the ballot for me in my district,
Mhm.
and almost all of the blank ballots that you can pull offline right now are the total ballot. So that included you. I had the ballot I pulled included your district and included all the city council
Mhm.
seats too, which I don't apply for any of those. And so I'm just trying to,
Right.
like, because for me, I started with trying to focus on my district, because
Hmm.
two of the guys on the show are out here in the same area. The other two guys are elsewhere. And so we started, as we started getting going, we started getting more people involved. And that's what brought me to start talking to you. But, yeah, again, because it's like District 4. And then, like, I think I'm not sure if I'm 15 or 18 in the state rep seat, because they're both right here next to each other. I'm not 100%. I'd have to pull the map up again. But because I know, as I drive down the street and as I'm starting to see all the signs, when I get a
Hmm.
block away, my Gina Osters turn into somebody else.
Right.
And I'm not sure where the actual line is. And so I had Gina on. She was my first official interview, and she was fantastic. But like I was thinking about it earlier today. I was like, I think I interviewed her for no reason because she's not she might not be my district, but I think she is. I don't know. I have to double check it. But again, that's the point. It's so freaking complicated to try to keep up with this system, which is again one of the reasons why I'm hot on the metro idea, because we could drop down to what we're used to in county districts, and that covers everybody. Or maybe we might have to split some in half. Yours might become two separate districts, but it's still all encompassing.
I mean, it's definitely a thought, and it's definitely something to look into because, like we're talking about here, I can even go so far as to say I'm in District 16 for the state house, but part of my District 2 for the county is District 15 for the state house. So it's just so divided, and it's so
convoluted. There's a big word.
Exactly, that's a good word. And so there are. If you're trying to find out how to get a service or how to get a problem fixed, you could potentially have, well, if we include school board too,
right,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people to contact.
Right. Well, I get to go down to 5 because I don't have a city person that I have to talk to. But right, exactly. Right. And I didn't realize this as I was getting into learning this stuff and talking to you guys that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the school board is a separate governing body in and of itself. I mean, they really have no, I mean, like, I don't even know who my school board seat is. They're not on the ballot this time, which is why I haven't looked them up yet. And I figure they're a little too busy to talk to me right now. But, I mean, I was thinking about it because, like, I've got a buddy of mine who doesn't have kids, and it's like, well, that's still a governing body that you have to deal with. They take money out of your sales tax.
Right, it's sales tax.
So how that school board is spending county money, even though it functionally it functionally operates differently. We have a for you, like, you have a city, a county, a school board, and then you have mayor for city, mayor for county, and then Bob Thomas, the superintendent. So you have like 3 executives in that conversation, and then we get into state level and then federal level and all that on top of it. It's just it seems, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's one of the things that the system has done on purpose over the years, is try to get more complicated to try to make it harder on us. Because when Grant was here, we talked a lot about. We had a term limit conversation, which doesn't apply to you guys, but one of his things on the federal level is he wants to see term limits in the Senate and the House, which is funny because I'm the one person on this show that argues against that. But, he brought up gerrymandering in it, which is one of those things that I think everybody agrees is terrible, except for the people that do it. And it's like, well, how do we fix that? Because, like you said, I could call 7 people, and maybe one of them might have some insight on being able to do anything about that situation that we as a populace don't like.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution to that is. I'd be curious if that's even in the purview of the county commission. Because I guess you could ask as a resident for the city to dissolve, but I don't know if you could, as a county commissioner, other than maybe helping push it as a ballot item in a future election.
Right. I mean, how would you do it? I mean, would you have to get the city on board to do it, to get it on a ballot item? That's the thing. It's just like, what are even the mechanics of even getting something like that started? It would be a very interesting scenario. Right.
Well, when I first brought it up and I was talking to Kyle Ward about it, he's like, the easy answer is the city quits. The city just turns in their charter and quits, which isn't likely to happen.
That won't happen.
The next easy one is they go bankrupt and the city takes over because they can't pay their bills. Or the county rather takes over because the city can't pay their bills. Also not likely to happen because the city will, they'll figure out how to stay liquid and bring in extra funds between taxes or some other means in the process. And so me as a citizen that isn't at the city, I don't know if I have the right to bring that up as an issue. I do. My business is in the city, so I guess I do for that sense. And so I don't know. Like I'm actually thinking about figuring out how to potentially petition that for a future ballot item, just to see what the populace thinks about it. See if I'm totally off base and unique in my mindset, which I don't think I am. I'm like you in that. I don't think I'm special in my outlook on what's going on around me. I just don't think I ever hear myself when I'm watching the news or anything like that.
Right. Well, and that's also kind of, again, why I'm running. It's like, I don't necessarily hear myself in county government. And so, and I don't feel like I'm special. I feel like I'm like a lot of people that I'm like my neighbors, like other teachers, I feel like I'm very like minded with a lot of people, and I don't necessarily hear myself in government. And so, it's almost like, why the hell not do it? You
Right.
know?
Right. That, I mean, that honestly, that was my mindset. I just probably until about 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had the time. I wouldn't have thought I had the time until I do now, which is the only reason why, like, which is part, again, the part of this to me is I'm almost doing a little research for myself on whether I want to
Mm-hmm.
pursue this in the future. Cause I joked with Kyle, with Kyle on it. It's like, I thought about running, but, the only way I'm a good public speaker is when it's like this and I don't see the audience. Like I can't, I like the last time, the last two times I spoke in front of more than five people was my wedding and my best friend's wedding, and I cried like a baby both times. And I just don't feel like that's going to go over well in a city council meeting or something like that.
Well, I'll just take you to a high school class with me and throw you to the wolves. How about that?
Oh, see, well, kids I can do. I mean, I lead my den in scouts, and well, at least they're all elementary kids, so I hold the power of I'm way bigger than you at least when I'm fighting with them.
Right.
But yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near a high school ever again in my life. I'm
Well, if you can do that, then you can be a public speaker.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out how, like, if I'm going to send my kids off to military school or something, so I don't have to go to the high school that they go to. I really don't like. It wasn't the worst time of my life or anything like that, but it was not. I don't know. I don't have terrible, bad, horrific. Like, it wasn't like a big bullying thing. I didn't have anything bad happen. But I hear friends that talk about high school as the best time of their lives. I'm like, nah, pass, not for me.
Yeah.
But I do miss not having anything remotely resembling responsibility. That's for sure.
Right. Absolutely.
Excuse me. So, I'm trying to think of anything else that I brought up with some of the other people that I wanted to get your take on. I mean, we talked a lot about the schools,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's very important. I think, I think getting better productivity out of the students and getting better, I don't know, getting better graduates is good for the community as a whole, not just the kids that are getting out of school.
Right. And just to comment on that, a lot of what I'm getting, oh well, county commission doesn't have much of a say. Oh, all we essentially do is write the blank check for their budget once we approve it or deny it, and that's really it. But who says it has to be it? I mean, why can't we still advocate for certain things? Like, there is a joint education committee where 4 members of county commission are on it and 4 members of the school board are on it. And why does it just have to be the budget? I get that people are elected to the Board of Education for that specific reason, for education policy and that sort of thing. But, let's have a sounding board. Let's create a coalition with teachers and administrators and members of central office and parents and students, much like they've done with this task force on how to reopen for COVID. Why does it have to stop once we have reopened again because of COVID? Let's continue this dialogue. It doesn't just have to be that it's the school board, and granted, they do get a lot of input from parents, and whether it's angry or whether it's negative or positive or that sort of thing. But let's just keep that dialogue going and see what we can do with it, with the resources that commission has, coupled with the resources that the Board of Education has.
Right. Oh, that I don't know why that reminded me, but are you familiar with how the oh, come on, brain. The public defender's office works? I had Sharif Gundy and Eric Lutton come on. They were guests on the show. As a non-constituent of yours, I encourage you to do anything you can to increase the services provided by the public defender's office. That's the coolest thing I think we're doing in Knoxville that I didn't hear about until I started doing the show. I want more of that. So I don't know okay. So obviously budget, it's always budget, especially right now. Budget's the biggest thing going on, but outside of budget, what do you think's going to be some top agenda items after you get elected?
What something that I want to look into is trying, with the climate of the nation right now being so divisive on so many things, not just political parties, not just politics in general, but but with law enforcement, is I want to, and I know this exists with the city because I started my neighborhood's organization about 4 years ago. And when I did that, and when we were organized, that doesn't mean that we pay dues or anything like that. That just means we set a regular schedule and meet regularly and registered with the city, with the Office of Neighborhoods, as they have a program, an officer liaison program, where each organized neighborhood is assigned a uniformed KPD officer to come meet with them. Every time they have a meeting, this officer comes, and if they can't, they'll send in a replacement. But they are assigned this one specific person, and so it creates this. It helps mend that relationship between residents and law enforcement. It creates this continuity between residents and law enforcement, and it gives people this person that they know and that they
Right.
see
I like that.
regularly.
I like that a lot.
And
So
and it
I interrupt
I
with
want
a
to
quick
extend that
question.
to the county.
Okay, because I interrupt that question because I am in the middle of a spot where if I did my neighborhood, it would be 95% county.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I
So
want to
I don't even know
extend
what
it to. I want to or either extend that program to the county or create something incredibly similar to that program, because it helps promote people in neighborhoods, reporting things, anything. Say they got broken into and it wasn't necessarily a violent situation, because that's actually happened to us. We had our door kicked in, and my daughter was 11 months old, and she and I had just left the driveway. They saw us leaving, and as soon as we pull out, they pull in and kicked our door open and stole a bunch of stupid stuff.
Right.
Like, we're talking like toothpaste and toilet paper and
needs
clothes.
Needs are needs.
Right. And so, if at that point we hadn't formed our organization. So had I had a point of contact, or had my neighbor across the street had a point of contact that she could have called, because she saw it all happening, and she was even writing down the license plate
right
as they were pulling out. And so had she known who to call, it could have been stopped, but while it was in progress.
Right.
They could have been caught while they're eventually, because they were idiots and kept stealing and stealing and stealing as the day progressed.
Right.
They were caught.
Right.
But it could have been stopped before that. And if we have that, I know who I'm going to call. I'm going to call Officer so and so, because he's part of our neighborhood.
You stick that on the fridge with all your other contact numbers like you're supposed to. Yeah,
exactly.
I like that a lot, because I mean that was the thing one of the things I was most excited getting Eddie Manis in here, which, like I said, he had to reschedule, but when he on his mayoral run, he was big on the community policing process. And so that brings me to another question that I talked to Grant about, is your thoughts on, because Eddie's not a big fan of the new Justice Center going into the old St. Mary's, which is right down the street from you, where Grant had his feelings on it as well. And so I guess to finish up on this point, I think that's the right way to move forward. I don't have the data behind it, but I think community policing is what needs to happen. I think just like we were talking about politics and the government in general, I think there's an us and them that is maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally over the years developed between the community and the police force that polices them. And I think that's something we can pull back as a county, hopefully as well as a city or a metro, if we can go there, fingers crossed. But so I mean that's like I said, I lived at right by Fulton High School for a number of years. That little Kroger right there was my Kroger. And both my kids were born in that hospital that is now the new Justice Center. I'm curious what you think what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on you guys locally? Do you think that's a good fit moving forward on the county and city combined usage for that, or do you think that it's maybe a misuse of that space? I don't know. What are your thoughts as far as that going in there, getting into place?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I mean, and it's kind of both ways. One is, I'm very nostalgic about that area, because not about St. Mary's, because not only were my kids born there, I was born there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I lived on Emerald Boulevard for 20 years.
Right.
And that was our hospital. And yeah, we need the closest hospital to us would be either, downtown or the
Nova.
new one on Emory
Yeah.
Road, I guess, or Fort Sanders, UT, Fort Sanders. They're all kind of the same
Right.
amount. When I know when I was in labor and on my way to the hospital, it was a 10-minute drive.
Right.
Thank God, because I
Right.
ended up having my daughter 30 minutes later.
Right.
But it was just it was the community hospital.
Right.
And so that when it closed, it kind of hurt. But at the same time, I know there are a lot of moving parts with that situation. So, for the safety building, the current safety building right now is going to be turned in to a children's science museum or a children's museum of some sort, which I think is a great asset to Knoxville. That's the teacher side of me and also
Right.
the parent side of me
Well, we need
wanting
the adult side of me
to
says
go
we need
ahead.
a better Civic. The Civic is terrible, and I know we just put a
Right.
bunch of money into it, and so we're stuck with it for another 10 years. I that
Right.
I have this is what I haven't asked anybody. This kind of well, let you finish your thought, and I'll ask about that in a second.
Well, and so those are kind of that's the positive side to it, but the other side to it is, I do kind of lean along the lines of that community policing, just because it creates that relationship.
Right.
I'm not necessarily saying that we need to have located precincts, but when we're dividing up precincts and beats and that sort of thing, I feel like if we have the same people over and over and they actually are engaged in the neighborhoods, then it creates several opportunities. One is it increases safety because people know who is there protecting them.
Right.
And and would be thieves or whatever would know that there is a consistent police presence,
Right. And the other
of
side,
some sort.
on that same train of thought, another way that a lot of people probably don't look at it is you got to think that if an officer is out in front of your house having an incident with an individual,
Mm-hmm.
you knowing that officer is going to change your outlook on that situation. Where if it's just some
Mm-hmm.
officer and some guy, you're like, I don't know what's going on out here. Is that officer
Right.
overstepping, or is that guy being crazy? Where if hey, that's Officer Jim, he hangs out all the time. He's a good dude. He's not going to be getting crazy on somebody for no reason. I'm going to to some minor level of support, or maybe I'll try to double call in some backup, or at least try to be a backup in the situation of some level instead of trying to pick which side I'm on while I'm watching an incident go down. I know Jim. Jim's a good cop. He's not doing this to just be a dick to this guy. He's trying to be a good dude. And so this guy, I think that again, I think community policing, I think that's the right move. I think it makes more sense on all levels for to especially to quell this whole antagonist approach that we have between the citizenry and the police.
Right, but at the same time, that it encompasses cooperation on both sides.
For sure.
And again, we're so divisive right now. That's part of the that's not just part of the problem. That's a lot of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Is the divisiveness of the climate of the nation right now, in a lot of different aspects. It's not just law enforcement. It's not just politics. It's on a lot of things. And so we've got to be able to put those things aside and realize that people have different opinions, yes, and people are allowed to state those opinions, but we can't just blow up at those opinions and be this all or nothing society, because when we're all or nothing is going to happen.
Right. Yeah, for sure. All right, so the question I thought of while we were going on that one is, and I haven't asked anybody about this yet, and it's been like it's been a theory I've had that I don't know if I have any real evidence on, but how much involvement do you think that the university has on city and county decisions about things?
I would say probably anything that deals with money.
Okay, because I mean we were talking about right, because we were talking about the Civic, and I loathe the Civic. I think it's a terrible venue for sports, for small sports. I'm a hockey fan, but I can't watch Ice Bears games. I just can't do it. There's other reasons on that. I've seen a few concerts on the venue side of it, and it's okay, But I mean,
Hmm.
as we're growing as a city, a good event center is huge. And I mean, in between, I feel like the university flexed on that and said, yeah, here, put some whatever into that, and we're gonna we're gonna keep everything at Thompson, which means they keep more of the money than we generate as a county, um,
Hmm.
or this, I guess, the city would generate on that kind of thing, and then whatever happened with the whole alcohol is now allowed on non-school events and all that kind of stuff, and so I just feel like there was just that specific, and I'm sure there's others that I could think if I thought about it, but that specific felt to me like that the university was just like, yeah, we're the number one employer in the county, we can do what we want, or you're going to do what we want rather. And I don't know. Again, going back to the metro idea, I think Knoxville's getting to the point. We're not a little university town anymore. We have a major university here for sure, but you've got what, Georgia Tech in the middle of Atlanta. Georgia Tech doesn't make decisions. Atlanta makes
Hmm.
decisions for Atlanta. How many major universities or how many major universities that are in major cities get the play that UT probably has for us? And I mean, I'm overstating that we're a major city, but we're getting there. I mean, 500,000 people is
Hmm.
not nothing. Um, in a school of what, 35,000 when it's fully sat has sway over the other 500,000 of us. I mean,
Right.
I have a that one's problematic for me. But I don't know. We're getting to the tail end. I have one question that I have to ask for one of my co-hosts. I've asked it to everybody
Okay.
else. If I don't ask it, he gets mad, even though I think he is the bad guy in this situation. The more I think about it, so yours is going to be a little different because you are a city resident, so it's a little different. But he is a county resident. He lives up in the Halls area, um,
Uh-huh.
and I've had issues here myself with similar situations. But there's some ordinance on the books that just don't make sense to me as we'll throw the as a free member of this society. He's had issues with his neighbors calling codes enforcement on him for his vehicles and his auxiliary property, for lack of a better word. And then I don't know. I feel like I have to ask, like, does it make sense to you that as a family that I'm not allowed to have two boats on my property?
No. Did you say to boat?
Yeah, two boats. Well, it's two trailers of any sort. As apparently, as I understand it, the ordinance is two trailers. So let's say I'm a contractor, right? And I go out
Hmm.
and I do job site stuff, and I have, I mean, or let's go. I'm a real hardcore contractor. I've got one that's got my, my skid steer and my some of my big heavy equipment that I go out and I, do
Hmm.
some ground leveling and stuff like that. And then I have another trailer that's got all my tools in it, and I pull all my saws and stuff out of it. So when I go to the job site, depending on what the job is, I take trailer A or B, and I
Right.
do pretty well at my contracting job. So I bought a boat for my family to go out on the lake on.
Hmm.
By law, I am two trailers over limit on my property.
Yeah, I think that's a little excessive.
Right. The number of trailers or the law is.
Not the number of trailers,
Okay.
the law. Because I'm thinking about me right now.
Well, I can't. The video doesn't show it, but I'm just saying, like, that's the
Right.
thing that's in place, and I've had issues with it. Like, mine was a little bit more straightforward, and I get it, but like, my wife was in an accident, and the car was undrivable, but we had it towed back here because we weren't sure what we were going to do. I didn't want to take it to a junkyard and have to pay lot fees, and so we had it
Mhm.
towed back here, and it overstayed its welcome for sure, but it's my car. It has value. It's not nothing, and I hadn't made a decision what I wanted to do yet, and I get a notice in the mail that says that car's got like I think it's like 15 days to get gone, or you're getting cited. And it's like, I mean, I understand I don't know how to properly regulate. I always argue as a libertarian, so I would say I could have 50 cars on here, and that's none of your business, government. But
Mhm.
in a more reasonable sense, it just, I don't know. Like, I hate the idea that the county is getting involved with a neighbor not liking me and how I live in my house and my property. Um, so that's the general premise of that question, I guess.
Right. Well, and it could be, codes enforcement people. They're supposed part of their job is, they drive around in their one certain area for whatever time period it is. They're supposed to. I know in the city at one point it was they're supposed to hit their entire jurisdiction every 2 weeks, which at this point is almost impossible because they're losing positions, and so their jurisdiction gets larger, but
Right.
yet they're supposed to still cover it in the same amount of time. So there's that part of it, but then there's also the neighbors complaining. I feel like if if there's a complaint or if there is a notification or a codes enforcement officer drives by and sees a codes violation, that they should at least approach the property owner and talk to him about the situation. I mean, things are situational, like you said. Your wife had a wreck and you had the car towed back to your house to figure out what to do with it. I mean, and as you were aware, as you just said, it overstayed its welcome, but at the same time, you still didn't know what to do. And so that's where the government should step in and say, here are these services in which you could potentially be a benefit to you. You could do the A, you could do B, you could do C. Here are options, and maybe give you more than just 15 days, maybe give you 30 days. But right. We can't just say, hey, you got to get rid of this or you're going to get fined. Let's offer solutions. It's like the always the complainer, but never the person to offer up a solution.
Oh, you're going to ruin our whole show. You can't say that. That's going to ruin our whole show because that's all we are complainers.
You're going to have me on a lot because I'll offer up solutions.
Okay, then good. I will hold you to that. I will hold you to that because that's one of the things I try to stop myself and think about it when we're doing big shows where we get on like rants about problems and this, that, and the other, and be like, okay, well, let's stop for a second. How do we fix it? But
right, you can't. I mean, it's like these. It's like a lot of people complain, but yet they don't vote. Ugh. If you don't vote, then
but that goes way back to the beginning. What we were talking about though is it's honestly it's hard to vote. Not physically. It's not physically hard to go to a polling station. Like I get mad about that conversation a lot about election day should become a national holiday so you get the day off work so there's no excuse for not to vote and stuff like that. And it's like I've never in my life ever wanted to vote and not been able to vote. I've never had a job conflict on it. The polling stations I've never had an issue as far as a polling station not being open at a time that I could go. And to me, I don't care if you complain or not, but at the same time, certain elections, presidential election coming up right now, I don't feel like I mean, again, I'm gonna write, if Tennessee doesn't have mine on the ballot, I'm gonna write in my libertarian candidate. But to me, if it was only the two options that we were looking at, I think no vote. I think no vote is a requirement for me. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying for me. I think no vote is a vote in some ways, and whether it's an apathy vote or whether it's an abstinence vote, it's a vote either way. And I think there's something about public officials. I don't know if you count under this or not, but I think there's something about public officials that don't think about it that way. I think that's something that I don't know how to impress that upon. I mean, you're getting it because we're talking about it, but I don't know how we could impress that upon a presidential nominee, for example. It's like, they do the lip service of, hey, go out and vote, go out and vote, go out and vote. But I don't feel like anybody takes it, anybody, at least on the national level, takes it as a 55% of the population voted. And I got 55% of that 55. So 25% of the nation voted for me. I should probably be thinking things of like, what happened to the other 45%? And what are they wanting out of, what are they either so apathetic or so angry at that they didn't bother voting? And that to me, that should be a vote. I mean, honestly, for the past 5 elections, no vote would have won the presidential election. And that's a problem, that people are either so apathetic, and that's something on our side, that's a culture issue, or they're so angry at the options they have that they don't. So what do we do how do we impress upon them that they are missing the boat on who's not voting for them? I don't know. That's an interesting one. I like that. That would be a great conversation. I should take a note. We'll bring that back up on the weekend show.
Okay. What
else would you like to say? We're coming into the tail end of what we wanted to do. I want to give you the floor for a couple minutes, give the context that you want to do, anything that is specific to you that you want to get out to our audience, and then I'll do my little tag and we'll shut it off. And don't hang up on me because I'll have a couple things I want to say as far as post-air. Nothing scandalous or anything, but just stuff.
Okay. Like we were saying, that you can go vote in 2 days.
Friday.
It starts on Friday.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And then I can get my new computer for my kids.
Right? Yeah, and that's Friday also. And that's online. And then I think paper ballot. Paper request for those Chromebooks. Little plug for that is now I'm questioning my dates. It's either the 22nd or the 24th. where the schools will have them. So, keep that in mind. But early voting starts on Friday. It runs through August 1st. So it's Monday through Saturday, closed on Sundays. I'm pretty sure the schedule is 10 or 11 to maybe 7. And it's different as we get closer, like the last few days of early voting, they are open longer.
Mm-hmm.
And then election day is a Thursday, which kind of goes back to let's make it hard for people to get out and vote. It's on a Thursday. It's not
I didn't even
normal
realize. I
Tuesday.
just assumed it was a Tuesday. I didn't realize.
Nope.
Of course.
I actually assumed it was Tuesday when I first started running, Tuesday, August 4th, and had been telling people that, and then was corrected because, who knew that it was on a Thursday? But it's Thursday, August 6th.
All right. Well, then after you were elected, I challenge you to find out who did it and publicly expose them for the manipulation they attempted.
Well, I actually asked an election commission member, and apparently it's been like that for this one particular election. This is how it has traditionally been, and I don't know how long the term traditionally encompasses. I don't know the amount of time traditionally encompasses, but it's been this way apparently for a little while.
Sounds run of the mill for my life and trying to understand civics in Knoxville. Check.
Right. So Thursday, August the 6th, 8 to 8, polls are open. I do know there are, at this point, 7,800 absentee ballot requests. So we may or may not know the results of this election on Thursday night. It could go into Friday.
Right.
So there's that. But be sure to get out. If you want to find out more about me, I do have, is it okay if I do say website information?
Yeah. Do the whole thing.
You can go to electcourtneydurrett.com. My email is electcourtneydurrett@gmail.com. You can find, if you go to my website, you can find my phone numbers on there, email is on there. The basis of my platform, my humble beginnings as a Knoxville daughter of 2 teachers. So it's all on there. And like I said, I'm just like everybody else. I'm trying to be the voice of everybody else, the voice of the working class, because I feel like we've gone away from it. You look at county commission and it's not incredibly diverse. And so in backgrounds and in occupation and in a lot of things, gender, there's not a lot of diversity. So that's really why I'm running. We need more representation of just regular folks, and that's how I feel I fit into this puzzle.
Okay, cool, perfect. All right, so we are almost in agreement. We are at almost in agreement at gmail.com is our email. Get us on all the different podcast networks. We are on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Hit us up with any questions. If you're out there and you're not hearing from your candidate and want us to give us a shot at them, hit us up and we'll see if we can't get a hold of them. We're running out of time. We're trying really hard to get as many in as we can. And I, like a selfish person, am taking vacation the last week of July. So we're not going to get a lot of interviews in after next week. So if you got somebody out there that you need, hit us up. We will... We'll be back this weekend with a regular episode. Courtney, we really appreciate you, and we're going to shut it off here. So I'm going to hit